Hola, amiga. Welcome to the Latina Leadership Podcast, a podcast by Latinas for all women. Get ready because today's conversation is really special. Hola, amigas, and welcome to another episode of the Latina Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Diaz, and all right, let's get real for a second. Can I share something that happened to me this week? So I had carved out this, perfect little pocket of time, right? My phone on silent, door closed. I was in my little, recording nook, totally in my, hosting zone, and getting some bold voice notes, down for, this very episode. And I was on a roll, and then, my phone, which was supposed to be on silent, was lighting up like a disco ball on the desk. And I tried to ignore it. One more sentence, but the light, it was persistent, and it was a family group chat, all right? And it wasn't just one text, it was a cascade, because it's the holidays, as you can see, my sweater here. So everyone's trying to see what to get as gifts, who to call, and to keep updated on what our extended family is doing. Like my abuelita's health, what places to go shop for deals, a reminder that, hey, Christmas is soon, so y'all better get shopping. It was a whole ecosystem of need and opinion. And happening, in real time, right there on my screen. And then I just froze. I stared at the recording dot on my phone, and I swear in that moment, it felt like it was judging me. This tiny digital thing. It was the symbol of my professional thing, my focused ambition, and the feeling, understanding the reality of my family thing, my rooted responsibility. And I had this split second, heart-sinking thought, do I pause this to handle that, or do I ignore them to finish this? It wasn't a crisis. No one was hurt, but in that tiny moment, I felt that familiar subtle tear, that feeling of being pulled in two directions by two different, equally important kinds of love. And I know, with every fiber of my being that I'm not the only one who has had these moments, right? Maybe for you, it's a sick kid home from school when you have, a deadline. Maybe it's your mom calling just to chat when you're in the middle of a project. And maybe it's the guilt of saying, no to a family gathering because you have a weekend to work on your side business, right? It's like we're constantly living in translation, between two different languages of love and responsibility. And one language is the language of outcomes, our meetings, deadline, KPIs, bottom lines, building your own thing, it values efficiency, individuality, forward momentum. The other language is the language of presence, of, showing up, helping out, listening and being there. It's the values connection, collectivity, and the we. And sometimes it feels like these two languages are just yelling past each other, right? And you're just very tired, slightly guilty, deeply confused translator in the middle, right? Trying to make quarterly reports, making sense to your abuela, and then trying to explain why you can't miss that nephew's recital to your boss, right? That feeling, low grade, constant hum of negotiation is what we're talking about today. The push and pull between our big, beautiful, soaring ambitions and our deep-rooted, grounding connections. But today, we're not going to treat it like a problem to be solved. We're not looking for a hack to balance it perfectly, Instead, we're going to explore it as a source of power, a unique kind of energy. What if the tension itself is a fuel? And to do that, we have the most perfect real-life example a story from one of our listeners that is so much more than inspiring. It's a masterclass, a living, breathing blueprint for how to not just manage these two worlds, but to blend them into something stronger than either one could become and be alone. And so I'm going to read you her entire story first, just as she wrote it. No interruptions from me, because every single part of it, every comma, every detail matters. It all builds a picture, and her name is Sabor956, and honestly, her life isn't just a story, it's a testament. So let me pull out my trusty dusty phone, and let's take a listen to this. I became a mom when I was just a teenager. At 15, I had my first child, and by 17, I had my second. My husband and I, who were best friends before anything, have truly beaten the odds together. In total, we have 5 children, all born between the ages of 9 and 10. With the support of both our families, financially, emotionally, and through babysitting, we were able to buy our first home when we were just 21 and 24. 5 years later, we purchased our dream home where we still live today. It hasn't always been easy. Like any couple, we faced our share of challenges, but through it all, we've remained strong. I also pursued my education during that time. It took me longer than expected since I didn't qualify for financial aid, but I never gave up. I earned my bachelor's degree in social work in 2017, and later in 2020, I completed my master's degree in social work. Today, I work as a district social worker for a school district in the Houston area. I have the privilege of serving families in my community and helping connect them to vital resources and services. I believe everyone should have multiple streams of income, whether through jobs, side businesses, or hobbies. In 2023, I told my oldest daughter I didn't want her to work while in high school. Instead, I offered to help her start a small business making and selling chamoy so she could earn her own money. We began selling to family and friends, and the response was amazing. I've always had incredible support from my family and friends, and I'll never forget where we started. A couple of months later, my daughter decided it wasn't for her and chose to get a job instead. But the chamoy orders kept coming in, so I decided to continue the business on my own. Fast forward 2 years, and Sabor956 has grown beyond what I ever imagined. We've expanded our menu to include candies, michelada mixes, and seasonal baked goods. We now have employees who depend on weekend events to help support their families. And we're so grateful to be in a position to give back, not just financially, but through acts of service in our community. We like to call ourselves silent servers, working behind the scenes to make a difference. We sell online, but our main source of income comes from pop-up markets. We love attending these events, meeting new people, and catching up with our regulars. Our chamoy business doesn't feel like work. We truly enjoy what we do. I'm proud to say our business is doing very well financially, and we hope to continue growing. We were born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley, Mission, and McAllen, which is where the name Sabor956 comes from. And here's a fun fact. Most people think we sell edibles, probably because our packaging and our slogan, "Get addicted at your own risk." But once they try it, they realize our candy is just that addictingly good. Forgot to mention that once I found out I was pregnant at 15, I focused on school. I graduated high school at 16 years old. What an amazing story. First of all, graduating high school at 16 while pregnant, the focus, the support system that must have been in place to make that possible, the sheer unwavering vision that must have taken is just next level. That's not just willpower. That's a different paradigm altogether. Then buying a house at 21 when with a young growing family, like let's just sit with that math for a second. You know, I think when I was 21, my biggest financial decision was debating whether to splurge on a fancy bag or not, right? The fact that she had the practical, tangible support to do that, you know, the babysitting, the emotional backing, like luckily the financial co-signing, that's not a small thing. That's a foundational force. And then the whole chamoy business origin story, like I love how it started. It wasn't from, born from a formal business plan or the market gap analysis. It was from a mom's desire to protect and empower her daughter. Being like, hey, let's try this cool creative thing together instead of, you clock in somewhere. It was relational first, entrepreneur second, and when her daughter moved on, she didn't see it as a failed project. She didn't, back it up with a sign. She looked at the incoming orders, clear signal from her community, and just kept going. That's such a beautiful, organic responsive way to build something. You listen to what the people around you are saying, even if they're just saying, more chamoy please, right? And now, look at it. It's a thriving ecosystem. It has employees, it has regulars, it has a vibe so distinct, people think it's selling something else entirely, which, by the way, is maybe the best accidental branding I've ever heard. And through it all, she names her team Silent Servers. So when I first read the story, my immediate heartfelt thought was, this woman is incredible, like she's a force. But my second thought, the one that comes from the part of me that loves to, understand how things work, was, I wonder what mechanics of this, what the mechanics of this are, because it feels magical, like a superhero origin story, but I have a feeling it's not just about being a superhero. I bet are some really interesting tangible structures and mindsets, at play here that we can actually learn from. It's not just personality. It's like she's operating on a different software. And I want to know what that software is. So I got curious. And when I get curious, I do what I do. I start poking around in research in social science. And what's absolutely fascinating is that there is a whole body of work, that helps explain the how behind a life and success story like this. Super excited to go into this, as you can tell. A huge part of it revolves around, a concept research called familismo. Now there's just this this is just an academic term for something in our communities, that we know in our bones, honestly. The idea that family bonds are central, that we have a profound sense of mutual support, reciprocity, and collective responsibility. Andrea's not great with words here. It's that we before the me. Now for a long time, a lot of mainstream psychology, which, let's be honest here, was largely built on a very individualistic Western European model, viewed as kind of tight-knit interdependence with suspicion. The ideal was being an independent individual, becoming a fully separate, self-reliant unit. Strong family ties were sometimes even pathologized as like enmeshment, which means like a barrier to becoming your own person. But more recent and thankfully critically more culturally aware research completely flips that script. Studies have shown that for many Latinas, that strong sense of family is not a weakness or a hurdle. It's a massive source of strength and motivation. It provides a why that is bigger, deeper, and more resilient than individual ambitions alone. So when you feel like your efforts directly lift up your parents, your siblings, your children, your whole family's honor and future, that is a powerful engine. It can fuel you through obstacles that might make a purely self-focused drive stall out. So think about Sabor 956 graduating at 16. So her education wasn't just a personal goal. It was a lifeline for her child. It was a statement to her family. It was a building block for stability. That why was collective, and because of that, it was incredibly powerful. Then there's the practical day-to-day support, right? Economists and sociologists have a term for this too, and I know y'all have heard of it, called social capital. It's the value that comes from networks, relationships, trust and norms, and it's the currency of community. It really is. And her story is a masterclass in converting social capital into every other form of capital you need to build a life, right? The babysitting for her family, that's not just nice help. That is a provision of a service that is in the formal economy, costs thousands upon thousands of dollars per year. It's what allowed her the little hours of the day to go to school and to work. It transformed family connection into time capital. The emotional and financial support to buy a house at 21, that's a classic of how close-knit communities create pathways to stability alongside of traditional financial systems. When a bank might see risk, her family saw an investment in their collective future. They acted as a micro-lending circle, a co-signing coalition. This is how intergenerational support builds tangible brick and mortar assets. And starting the business by selling to family and friends, first, this is business strategy 101, guys, but from a deeply cultural, trust-based perspective. It's a low-risk, high-trust market. Entry. Your first customers are also your focus group. They're your beta testers, your most honest critics. So they'll tell you something like, "Yeah, it's good, but it needs something more. It needs more lime or something." And your most passionate people. You're not launching into a void. You're launching into a web of existing relationships. You're building a foundation of belief. So when you step back and look at it through this lens, her family wasn't a weight on her ambitions. They were the foundation, the launch pad, the safety net, and the first round investors. This is a model of success that is deeply, inextricably relational. It's not about, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps in isolation. It's about being woven into a net that lifts everyone together. But there's another layer to her story that I can't stop thinking about, okay? And that's her business philosophy. The name she chose, she didn't call it a hustle or, grind. She didn't give herself a flashy CEO title. She called herself and her team silent servers. And I love that so much. In a world, where a lot of mainstream business and hustle culture is about being the loudest voice in the room, about personal branding, about constant curated visibility, silent server feels almost radical in its humility. But please, don't mistake humble for weak. It's incredibly powerful and incredibly powerfully strong. What she's describing is a business built on consistent presence and deep trust, not just promotion. It's built on showing up week after week at those pop-up markets, showing her regulars and knowing their names and their orders, being a tangible, reliable part of the community fabric. That creates a customer loyalty that transcends a transactional relationship. Oh my God, it becomes a relational one. You heard the term relation, but this is really the building block of it. People aren't just buying chamoy, they're buying from her. Think about it. They're supporting a person they know and trust. That kind of business has the roots that go deep in the soil. It's resilience. It's resilient, and it can weather storms that flatten most superficial ventures. And And then let's talk about the juggle. The way she manages all her different roles. She does a lot. She's a mother, a wife, a student, a master graduate, social worker, business owner, employer, community servant, goes on and on. We hear so much about work-life balance, and that metaphor of the perfect scale, with work on one side and life on the other in perfect equilibrium, it's a nice image, I'm not gonna lie. But for many of us, especially those of us navigating multiple cultural and family responsibilities, it can feel like a cruel, impossible standard. It sets us up to feel like we're constantly failing. And her life, it doesn't look like a balanced scale. It looks more like what we might call, integrate, new word here, work-life integration. Or even better, a portfolio of purpose. Her social work isn't separate from her business, right? Her deeply understanding of, her daily understanding of community needs from her job undoubtedly, informs how she runs her business with empathy and heart. Her experience as a mom of 5, that's a PhD level crash course in logistics, negotiation, crisis management, and multitasking. Skills any CEO would envy. The financial success of her business creates stability for her family and fuels her capacity to give back in her social work and community service. The unwavering support of her family provides the emotional foundation that allows her to do all of the above. The different parts aren't fighting for a scarce resource called time, right? They're feeding each other. They're connected in a virtuous cycle. One role provides strength to another, and this is more of a holistic, more sustainable, and I believe more powerful way to think about constructing a life and a career. It's about creating a synergistic ecosystem, not just balancing two opposing forces. So what does all of this mean for you right now in your life? If you're sitting there feeling that familiar push and pull, that tension between your ambitions and your connections, how can we take this story and the science and make it practical, actionable? Not another thing to add to your to-do list, but a new way to see the list you already have. So here are a few ideas. Think of them as lenses to try on, not rules to follow. So first, try taking an inventory of your existing network assets. And I want to be really clear here. This is not about using people. It's about recognizing the wealth of strength and resource that is already in your orbit, woven into the fabric of your everyday relationships. But we often overlook it because it doesn't come with a business card, right? So who are your natural brainstorm partners? Who is the encourager who always believes in you? Who has a practical skill? This could be fixing things, understanding tech, or cooking amazing food that complements yours. So who has a network different from your own? Sometimes the most valuable resources for our dreams are sitting at our family dinner table, or are just one phone call away. See them not just as family, but as your first most invested advisory board. Okay, second experiment with reframing interruptions as information. This is a tough one, okay? I know. The next one, the next time a family need or obligation pops up, in the middle of your focused workflow, as it happened to me, guys, instead of just seeing it as a frustrating distraction that's pulling you away from your real work, pause. Okay, pause. Yeah, see if you can look at it as data. So, what skill are you using in this moment? Is the chaos of coordinating a family event secretly training you in project management and diplomacy? Is listening to your elders' long story teaching you patience and narrative thinking? Is translating a document for a parent honing your clear communication? So, questions here. Our lives, especially our family lives, are constantly cross-training us in high-level human skills. We just rarely give ourselves credit for it because it doesn't happen in an office, right? And third guys, define your own service style. So you do not have to force yourself to be the loudest, most extroverted, front and center leader if that's not who you are. The world has plenty of those. If you are someone who leads by supporting others, by doing consistent, excellent work behind the scenes, by building genuine relationships one conversation at a time, by being a reliable force, that is a profoundly powerful and valid form of leadership. Own it. Silent servers, as our listener said, are the backbone. They are the ones who build things that last. So give yourself permission to lead from your authentic place, not from a place you think you're supposed to occupy. And finally, look for connections, not just compartments. Instead of trying to build a higher, thicker wall between work time and family time, see if you can find tiny manageable ways to let them gently inform each other. Maybe you share a challenge from work with a family member over coffee, and you get a piece of surprising wise advice from a completely different perspective. Maybe a skill you use all day at your job, it could be organization, creativity, analysis, can help you plan a better community fundraiser or a smoother family reunion. When we stop seeing these parts of our lives as separate kingdoms of war and start seeing them as neighboring territories that can trade resources, we can start to build a more cohesive, more peaceful, and honestly, more interesting life. So here's the big takeaway. After sitting with Sabor 956's amazing story and, weaving in what research tells us about how these things work, her life shows us something truly profound. The very things we sometimes worry are holding us back, our family, responsibilities, or community ties, or ingrained desire to take care of others, can actually be the source of our greatest strength. They can be our most powerful motivation, our most resilient support system, and even the foundational model for how we build our businesses, our careers, and our legacies. It's not about choosing between our roots and our dreams. It's about learning how our roots can nourish our dreams, how the skills we learn in the family part of our life make us more capable in the work part of our lives. How the values we carry from our culture can give us a unique and competitive advantage in the world. How our deep need for connection can become the model for building a business that people love and trust. So Sabor 956 story is more than inspiration. It's a permission slip. A permission slip to build a life that looks authentically like you. A life that has your family's name on it, your community in its heart, and your own unique, powerful flavor all over it. You don't have to leave parts of yourself behind to succeed. You can bring your whole self, the one that shows up for the couch debates and the boardroom meetings, and let that wholeness be your power. Sabor 956, thank you. Thank you for your breathtaking honesty, for your resilience, and for showing us in such vivid detail what is possible. And to every single one of you listening, I'd love to hear from you. How do you navigate your own blend of, culture, familia, and hustle? When do you feel the tension, and where have you, found unexpected synergy? What's one small way these worlds have, come together for you in a beautiful and powerful way? So let's learn from each other's, designs. And remember your unique combination, your specific history, your particular people, your personal dreams, that isn't your obstacle course. It's your raw material. It's your fingerprint. And that is your undeniable power. So don't overcome it, build with it. Thank you for being here and for listening, for being part of this conversation. It means the world. And I'll talk to you en la próxima. Bye, amigas.